Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Movie Mates video. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Cal.
Hey man, good to see you. Today we're back with Overdue review of Bill and Ted Face the Music. It's been a while since we've recorded not just a mini review, but an episode in general because we've both been very busy, haven't we, Callum?
Yeah, Matthew, is that a burgeoning series title? Overdue review?
Overdue review, yeah, that's a good ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I think we go with that. Yeah, it's been a while since this movie came out, and I can say with full certainty I had no desire to see it whatsoever. I'm
Yeah.
doing this fully for the podcast. Nothing about the original two really made me want to see this film. I didn't expect myself to hate it, but I had to really force myself to watch it. Did you feel the same?
I did, man. It's one of those films where I didn't really hear much about it, much hype around it or anything like that. But like we said, earlier in the year, 2020 has been a bit dry for movies, especially good ones. So we're trying to get some more mini reviews out for you. So we've started with Bill and Ted Face the Music, and I thought this is a really weird time for this movie to come out because I thought the first two Bill and Ted's that they were enough. I don't think this movie was particularly needed. Do you?
No, they filmed it, and I think just Hollywood is just using like nostalgia as a ploy to make money now, and
Yeah.
it seems kind of cheap and soulless. And this sort of follows the basic formula of you introduce daughters or children as the new generation, for the new generation of audience members to see themselves in. How do you feel about that sort of trend? With like I was recently watching Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I'd sort of had quite a negative perspective to it, in that it's just sort of a rehash of A New Hope. But they
Mhm.
actually sort of introduced a new generation of characters very well. And I actually ended up really loving it on a rewatch. So, what do you sort of think of this trend? They're doing it with like Ghostbusters Afterlife when that comes out next year. It's sort of just children in the position of the older characters, and they're sort of there as mentor figures. Do you like that, or do you sort of resent that?
That's a really good question, dude. I'm definitely with you on the Star Wars Force Awakens consensus because that film was like a perfect reboot for like old and new audiences alike. Like it did it really well. Um, in terms of like Ghostbusters, I think because of the sort of the negative reception of the 2016 film, I think they were almost forced into doing that again. Because they didn't want to maybe end the saga on like a low point. Now I haven't seen the film, so
Oh
I
yeah,
can't comment on how good it is, but maybe it is good. I don't know. But yeah, for this film, I thought it was
it's not good.
it's
It's
not
not
good.
good. No.
Okay, well, for this film, I don't know. It's certainly becoming, like you said, dude, that more of a trend for Hollywood films to sort of, like you said, bring in new generation. It's already something that the Marvel films have done quite gradually as well. But I don't know. Like I think with the Marvel films, it probably works better because of that pre-existing universe and built upon every year. Whereas this film feels a bit out of the blue with like a over a decade span between between the second one and the third one. So it feels a bit unnatural. But that being said, like it was a cool direction for it to go down, I guess. But likewise, I think this film is very much there's a lot going on, if I could say that. It's just too much going on here. I feel like they tried to, pick a lot of different things from the sci-fi genre and try to blend it in here. So it missed the mark slightly for me, buddy. What about yourself?
Yeah, sort of with the discussion of the Marvel films, I would say I'm probably of the different mindset to you that when this happens in sort of a standalone film like this, where it's sort of just a nostalgic sequel to like an original franchise, at least if it doesn't work, it's over quickly. But,
Mm,
if you spend
that's
10 years
true.
building the Marvel universe on this sort of bank of like 6 to 10 characters, and then you just do like them but younger. Spider-Man is now a young Iron Man. They're gonna
Yeah,
have a second
that's true. Yeah,
Hawkeye. They're probably gonna have like Hulkling. They'll have Scarlet Witch and Vision's children. One of which is like a speedster like Quicksilver. I think it's gonna get very tired very quickly, and if they're doing
that's a
that
good
for
point.
another like 10 years, it's just gonna get tired really quickly.
I do think it could definitely come off as lazy writing in the sense that you're just rehashing storylines, but with younger, more modern, cooler cast members, like you said, sort of like Spider-Man becoming the new Iron Man. And with this film, it's hard to say if Billy and Thea they could spring their own TV show or movie. I don't think the actors like I think they give good performance, but I don't think they have the star power to really propelled this movie forward. Like, it's hard to say if there would be a spin-off in the similar sense to how like the Marvel films have done it. Do you think there'll be a spin-off?
Surprised actually by those two characters, because watching the trailers, the trailers really did this film a disservice, and I think that's why the film was maybe not as hugely successful financially as it could have been. Because these sort of nostalgia trip films usually actually do very well. I mean, I would say the most well received critically one that was still financially a failure was probably Blade Runner 2049, but that film is incredible. Yeah. And I think marketing is always a huge issue, and I think marketing was a big issue for this, because the marketing really made a mistake in sort of portraying Billy and Thea as like this like thinly veiled impression of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters, where the two leads are like, where the two teenage daughters are actually incredibly charming. I think they're actually they're really nice characters independent of their dads. Instead of like just the like goofy impression that the trailer gave across.
Yeah, it's definitely like a tricky one, like blending good marketing and a good movie. Like looking back on films that did like the reverse of Bill and Ted, I sometimes think like the Logan trailer looked incredible, but looking back now, the movie was great, but it definitely was nowhere near as good as what I expected it to be through the trailer. Like that trailer is probably one of my favorite trailers of all time, but it just, I don't know if you'd agree with that, but it just didn't live up to the hype. So in a weird reverse way to how this film was marketing went, I suppose.
Yeah, but I feel like marketing a film, like pretty much like the rule of thumb is if you can't get too like, if you can't make a good trailer, then it's not going to be a good movie. Like if usually you can't you can make like a good trailer of a bad film.
Suicide Squad, I suppose, would be an example.
What am I trying to what I'm trying to say is really, if you can't glean 2 minutes of good footage out of something, it's probably terrible.
Yeah.
So if a trailer is like really bad, so like usually the film is like, have you ever been really surprised by a film where the trailer was like genuinely terrible, but
that's
then
a good question.
The film itself was good?
That's a good question. So I've sort of said, good trailer, bad film would probably be Suicide Squad for me.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm trying to think of a bad trailer, good film. That's a good question. It's the same. Well, I don't know. Maybe something like, it's hard to say, like, if it, on the spot now. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like superhero movies with really bad trailers, but a good. I really didn't like the Doctor Strange trailers when they came out, but actually was surprisingly like that. The ending of that film, especially like the whole third act, was amazing. So I thought the trailers were very average for that, but the movie was also very good. So that was probably an example I'd use for that. Can you think of any?
Not off the top of my head, but I think Doctor Strange is a really good shout, and I think that's maybe just because Marvel are comfortable knowing no matter how bad a trailer is, they know people are going to come.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Exactly. So they felt comfortable, like which was definitely a positive, like for that film, because then keeping like the things closer to their chest, they were able to keep surprises. So by making a really boring trailer, they made like a huge surprise of a film that was like thoroughly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, have I forgotten what I'm going to say? No. What do you think? I mean, now we're just talking about trailers, but what do you think is the biggest like pitfall of a trailer? Like, what do you see in a trailer and you immediately go, that's a bad film, or that's just like a really bad move by the marketing team?
It's a good question. For me, I think it's hard to say, but like if let's take an action film or a superhero movie, for example. If I see 3 or more separate action scenes in the trailer, that's always an alarm bell for me, in the sense that this film is given a lot away, like a lot.
Yeah.
That's always a pitfall for me if a trailer gives too much. It's the same for everyone. If a trailer spoils the whole film, it's not a great trailer, of course. And like I said, one of my favorite trailers is the Logan trailer, and the fact that it was so discreet and didn't show that much was fantastic. But likewise, I really dislike trailers that sort of hype you up in the wrong way or use footage that isn't actually in the film. Like a good example of that is the Infinity War trailer, where you can see the final shot is all the Avengers running through the Wakandan jungle. Like that scene's never in the film, and that it's a little bit pathetic for me, in the sense that the Marvel Studios had CGI'd Hulk for a trailer, and that's it. That's a little bit sad, I think. I just
Yeah,
that annoys me. But anyway,
yeah.
that's
I
probably a
yeah.
pitfall for me.
I think if every single scene in the trailer is an action shot, I think you can probably guarantee that the writing is terrible
Yeah,
because they're
yeah,
not comfortable
it's a good shout. Yeah.
showing any of the dialogue.
Hmm.
I think your script is probably bad if it's an action shot for every single scene. Uh, and yeah, I agree with you. My absolute pet peeve when it comes to trailers is them showing too much. Batman v Superman ruined the entire film.
Yeah,
The
it did.
Graduate,
I haven't seen the
is
graduate
an
trailer.
incredible film. I would give it, obviously 10 out of 10. It's
Sure.
incredible, but the trailer, when you watch on YouTube, it gives the entire movie away.
Does
Like
it?
it's absolutely ruined. It says about, well, I'll actually not say it here because you haven't signed up for Graduate spoilers, but if you want to go watch that trailer on YouTube, you know, in and it's actually like YouTube's official trailer for it. When you click onto like
Oh yeah, yeah,
when it gives
yeah.
you the option to buy or rent when you watch the trailer, it just ruins the entire film. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I wouldn't bother renting that after seeing that.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, I 100%, 100%. And like there was there's one trailer that gives there's one trailer that has given everything away. It's the Avengers Endgame trailer, but it's for the DVD release. So obviously, from that, the marketing strategy from that point is the people who are buying the DVD have already seen the film. But like, there's bound to be a big number of people who have not seen the film, just missed it in theaters, had a busy life or something during the time it was released, and just had to buy it and wait to buy it on DVD and managed to avoid spoilers. But if they had watched this trailer, there is literally there's like Captain America with Mjolnir, there is Iron Man's death. This trailer has everything. And I was just surprised because it just gives so much away. And I get, that was released after the film, but even still, like there's a lot of films I didn't see in cinema, but wait to buy on DVD. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. You can't have a trailer that's just like best of. Like you
Yeah,
can't show, like, obviously don't show the worst moment in like don't show the worst moments of your film in the trailer. Don't show the best moment. Like show the, have your like big action thing that everybody talks about be the second best thing in the film, and
exactly.
then the
Exactly.
best thing is a surprise. I think just trailer editors and marketing teams just sometimes feel horrendously.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like going back to Bill and Ted, like the thing with this film is I think even though the trailer probably wasn't great, I think that this movie you could have made a very good trailer out of it in the sense that there's so much going on here. And I think maybe that's where there's a slight pitfall in the film because I think this movie somehow, for me anyway, it like makes time travel way more confusing than it was in the first two films. And I think there is slightly one too many characters going on here, for me personally. Like how did you feel about like the character development for everybody? There's a lot of famous characters in this, both real life and the actors interpreting them. So what's your thoughts, too?
Well, I mean, it's an hour and a half film, and it has too many characters for like a 2 hour film. So there's essentially no character development. And I think big fans of Bill and Ted, which we aren't really, I sort of had like a vague sense of nostalgia for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but
Hmm.
Excellent Adventure I hadn't even seen until like a few months ago. So I've never been a Bill and Ted fan. So I think just being in the universe and seeing it like that is enough. Like sort of, as I said, I was watching the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and I think people just seeing where characters are in their life is enough for them. They don't need to develop in any way really. So
Hmm.
I think just like sitting in this universe and seeing what the characters are like is probably enough for anyone who's willing to watch Bill and Ted 3. It's either going to be a fan of the first two films or a movie reviewer. So I don't think either of those people are that concerned about how well developed the characters
Yeah.
become.
Yeah. It's a
uh,
good point.
but this film itself, I think we should point out you're wearing a Wild Stallions
I
t-shirt.
am. I am.
Uh, and I mean, by coincidence, I'm wearing a Rick and Morty t-shirt. And I sort of wanted to point out that this film is essentially just a 1.5 hour adaptation of the episode Get Swifty, where
Actually,
where
yeah. Yeah, I didn't
Rick and
think
Morty
about
need
that,
to
actually.
write a song to impress the floating heads in the sky. It is essentially just a rehash of that
It is,
story,
actually. That's a
uh,
really good point.
but it's probably, I mean, it's less funny.
Yeah, like it's weird. The first two Bill and Ted films, like there's a lot of jokes I actually laughed in those films, especially the second one. But for here, I didn't really catch myself laughing particularly, apart from maybe when like they meet other versions of Bill and Ted, like they go to a prison and they see like really muscular Bill and Ted, which I thought was quite funny. And then there's quite a good bit, I suppose, when they meet like uh I think there's like a married couple, Bill and Ted, or of some description, or a Bill that disguises himself as a woman, and they're like in this celebrity's mansion or something. That was quite funny. But
Oh
that
yeah,
being
yeah, that was funny.
that being
Well,
said,
funny's generous.
that being yeah, like you said, sort of, it's not maybe laugh out loud funny, but it's reasonably funny. But I actually thought Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves, their portrayal of the characters is still great. Like they've still got it, and it feels exactly the same like all these years later for me.
Yeah, like I would agree with you. Like the biggest reaction it got for me was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
humorous.
yeah,
You know, like I did not laugh a single time, but I'm not going to hold that against the film because I never laugh out loud except when I'm in the cinema. When I'm alone, I don't know. The way like laughing is considered like a social construct where you don't really laugh when you're alone because you
yeah,
have that as like an
sure.
internal reaction. You only laugh like
In the
it's
company of
it's like a
people and
social
stuff.
signal of haha, I'm enjoying this. Other
Sure.
people know I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
So I never find myself laughing when I'm alone. But I fully agree with you that it feels authentically Bill and Ted. This it doesn't feel like disjointed or disconnected from the first two films.
Hmm.
It feels like a perfect sequel, but that doesn't mean that I inherently like it. You know, like for me, the humor is just it's too juvenile, but not in the way that the first film was, because the first film was like like bro humor, like bro stoner humor, like of the
Yeah.
80s, or was it the 90s? I don't no, I think it was the first one
Uh,
was the 80s, wasn't it?
I think yeah, late '80s, early '90s. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think the second was like 1991 or something. But it was that kind of like rock on bro humor
Yeah.
of that time that I'm just not accustomed to. So I think that film had that, and it was doing it unironically. And
Hmm.
then the second film and now this film are much more self aware. But being self aware of something doesn't always make it funny.
Yeah.
Because it's not exactly highbrow satire, is it? It's like
Hmm.
it's them just doing the jokes, but recognizing that it's a bit. Well, I mean,
I know what you
is
mean.
it self-aware?
I
Because
know what
it's
you
it's not
mean.
like they're
Yeah.
going, this is cringe, or it's not like them going, this is embarrassing. Like I think if they had sort of drilled home like the reaction of the audience to like these grown men doing like this embarrassing stuff, I think if they had made it more like they're down on their luck and depressed, like I mean, I was gonna say I would have found more humor in that. That's a bit dark, but like if
I know what you
I had
mean.
sort
I
of
do know
felt
what you
like the
mean.
film recognized it was embarrassing for them to be doing this.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like the first two films have like a lot of quotable moments, and this film's humor it sort of varies from the first two in the sense that it's very I can't really describe it. It's very Simpsons type humor in the sense that like the Simpsons, it's kind of it's like it's not kid humor, but it's not quite adult humor. It's sort of in that weird sort of awkward sort of awkward stage where like it can't be really crude, but likewise it can't be so juvenile where it's like poop jokes and stuff like that. So this film sort of has a weird sort of balance in the similar sense of how The Simpsons does it for me. And it has a very similar tone to like the Simpsons movie, which is as a very weird point to make, but I thought it was quite similar. And like, there's not as much like quotable moments in it for me as the first two. It did very much feel like a remake and a rehash. There's no new ground really covered except from, of course, the daughters. But yeah, what do you think about that? Did you agree?
Well, I was just wondering, do you think because they're sort of straddling the line between sort of like kids humor and adults humor, do you think that sort of alienates both audiences and the movie's kind of like for no one?
It's sort of a similar thing to what you said. Like, I think if you're watching this movie, you're either like a diehard like Bill and Ted fan, a movie reviewer, or just like a family that have like gone out for a movie night, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
it's not the sort of movie you'd watch as maybe like I don't know with a couple or like with your brother or your sister. It's not that really kind of film. But that being said, I do think it does slightly alienate both audiences, and I think it would have probably been a lot better if it had went for like a either Dora and the Lost City of Gold kind of vibe, where it's like it's so self-aware, or like maybe a Deadpool vibe, where it's like really crude humor. But that being said, it's Bill and Ted, so you got to be nostalgic to the old films, I suppose.
yeah, I definitely agree. And we sort of talked about the sort of complicated time travel mechanics within the film,
Yeah.
and sort of an integral part of the idea of this film is that at a certain time, certain place, you know, Preston and Logan have to record this song to save the universe.
Mhm.
But the great leader of time, in the future. I think it's somewhere in the 28th century. I think they're in.
Mhm.
You know, she considers that perhaps it's the death of Bill and Ted that unites the universe rather than them recording a song. But I mean, one, that just doesn't make sense. Like, how,
No, it doesn't.
if it's fated, like, like they're like, ooh, there's different interpretations of what that means, and I'm like, how can you interpret they need to record a song at 7:17? Like, how is that interpretable as maybe we should kill them? But,
Yeah,
even aside from that, surely if it's a fixed point in time that they unite the universe either with their death or with a song on that date in 2020 at 7:17, surely like them sending a robot to kill them when they're time traveling in like 2025 or 2027, surely if they die in 2027, then their death has no effect in 2020, which is the
exactly.
fixed point in which they need to do something that changes the world.
Yeah. Oh, the thing that may be confused, maybe you can shed some light in this, is if Bill and Ted go into the future where like they see each other on their deathbeds and grab the song from them, even though they don't play, well, they do play the song, but it's not them who play the song. Like, surely that's a paradox because do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
a weird sort of situation there, and I actually really didn't really like the twist where it ended up it was the daughters who, because it made the whole film from Bill and I'd rather just a Billy and Thea film then, because it made Bill and Ted's journey pretty pointless at the end because they don't really play. I mean, they do by the end, but it's not their song. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I suppose the answer, as you said, is to that idea of the paradox is that they were stealing the song from their future selves, but it was not actually themselves that wrote it, so it doesn't really matter because
Yeah.
obviously if they steal the song, then Bill and Ted are never gonna, if they just take the song, they're never gonna get the inspiration to write it themselves. But
Hmm.
because it was actually their daughters that wrote it anyway,
It
I
doesn't
think
matter.
the
Yeah, that's a
paradox
good
is
point.
redundant.
Yeah.
I was sort of like, that was sort of like rolling in my mind throughout the entire film, and then I felt like that end sort of did solve it.
Yeah,
You
that's a
you
good
you
point.
sort of skipped ahead to the end, and we can talk about that now. I think I kind of like the subversion that it was their daughters who wrote the song, because I was sort of worried, when that was revealed. My immediate reaction was like a bit taken aback. I thought it would be a bit cheesy to have that, sort of, oh, it was them all along, when they went like, Logan and Preston, and
Yeah.
looked at their two daughters. I was like, oh, come on, because they sort of came back and said, like, it's written in the stars that Ted, Logan, and Bill, yeah, it's Ted Logan and Bill Preston are gonna write the song, and then they were like, oh, but we've been calling them Little Ted and Little Bill, so that's fine. But it's not fine because they're, Little Ted uh, Preston and Little Bill.
Billy. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but like, they're like the reverse,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're Ted Logan and Bill Preston, but they're Bill Logan and Ted Preston,
Yeah. It's so confusing.
because they've named the kids after each other.
Yeah.
Uh, it didn't really work for me, because I feel like Rufus knew the names of the people who would save the universe, and he obviously wouldn't have got the surname switched around if that's really what it was meant to have
Yeah. It's
have
a good point.
sort of prophesized.
It's a good point.
But I liked that it was less about what Bill and Ted were performing, and more that the world was being involved. That's sort of like the end dialogue of the film, that it wasn't the song that united the universe; it was that they were all playing it together. And
Yeah.
I
It's a good
sort of
message as
enjoyed that.
well.
Like, I think that message and that metaphor overpowered the initial
It's
sort
a
of
good point.
cheesy reaction to that subversion.
It's a great point. And one thing I really liked about this movie, dude, was how it brings back characters from the old films like Death and Ted's dad. I thought that was a really smart move because Death is probably he might be my favorite character in these films, which is
Oh,
weird to say,
100%,
but he's
100%.
great. He's fantastic, and um, I don't know. I thought like I actually thought I got quite like nostalgic when they brought the hologram of Rufus. I thought that was quite sad as well, but it was a fitting tribute, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, that was nice, to have that, at least, moment. Do you think? Uh, don't know where I was going with that. Like, please tell me, like, do you like, because I haven't listened back to the podcast since like the first episode. Do you cut little moments where I just like start a train of thought and I'm like, oh, I don't even know what I was saying.
It doesn't happen that often, to be honest, mate.
Or do you
But
just go
yes,
like, fuck you, Callum?
but like one question I'll pose back to you is, I think this film has a lot of moments where you could go quite emotional with it, especially when like young Bill and Ted are visiting future Bill and Ted. But like I think this film misses the mark in terms of emotional scenes. Like it rather would play a quick joke rather than an emotional scene. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I think cheap laughs. I mean, not laughs from us, obviously, but laughs from some people. I do think they are favored over like reverence. I mean, they're sort of. I think really the only opportunity for sort of like a quiet moment of emotion would either be if they took the fact that their wives were leaving them more seriously, or
Yeah,
if like
I agree.
old ass Bill and Ted had died in front of them or something, and they realized, oh, what if we went on and lived our lives and we died not getting the love of the princesses back? Like I feel like they were maybe doing that, but I don't think the message was as strong or emotional as it could have or should have
I
been.
agree.
I agree with you. I think they do favor, like if they think they can get a laugh out of something, they will. And it's like, oh, let's go back and see our wives, and then let's go back and see our wives again, and then sort of the visual gag, if you want to call it, like of the older them or the younger them entering the phone boxes, and yeah,
No, I
I
agree with
think
you,
they
man.
really should have hammered home the emotion of like how terrible it is for like something that you've invested like your entire adult life
100%.
in to fall apart.
100%. Because the princesses are my favorite characters in this film, along with Death. Like, I think their relationships are so sweet. But I wish they were in it more as well, because I thought there was a lot to be done there, especially with like their relationships and their failing marriages and stuff. I thought there could have been a more emotional arc there, but maybe we'll
Yeah,
see
and
it again in another film.
this is the third casting of the
Yeah,
princesses. They were like this the third duo, and how did you think they matched up to the previous two iterations? Like,
this I think.
I have to say I will give their accents like solid 9 out of 10. Like they were nearly perfect.
Yeah, like I think one of the actresses was in Paul Blart Mall Cop. Like she was the love interest in that film. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's where I knew her from.
I haven't.
But no, like I thought they were right up there with the originals. If I'm honest, I thought they were great.
Yeah, I'd say they're a bit of a notch above the original actresses in my opinion. But how would you rate the accents? Like how do you
Oh
rate
yeah, good,
the
very
overall
good.
accent work in this film? We have Samara Weaving playing Billy, or is she yeah, she's Billy. So she's Australian doing an
I thought
American
all the
accent,
accent work
and
was
then
great.
yeah, I said there was one slip up with Samara Weaving in like the opening dialogue where I sort of like, ooh,
Oh
like where I was
yeah,
like, you're Australian.
yeah.
But aside from that, I'd give it very very solid marks.
No, I'm the
Um,
same.
yeah, I don't have too much more to say about the film. Other than I think that this film is in my mind unquestionably better than Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And it may well be just because I don't have any nostalgia for that film whatsoever. How do you think it stacks up to the original two? I think that it's probably on par with Bogus Journey, but like both of them are definitely better than Excellent Adventure.
For me, I prefer the original to this one. Um,
Okay.
but that being said, I do think this one's good. I thought the ending was really rushed. Like it just finishes with the song sort of thing, and
Yeah,
I,
and
I
and
I
then, and
really
then
didn't like that at all.
there's a line of dialogue like yeah, the song plays, they've united the universe, and then you know Thea gives like the piece of dialogue just like, oh, the real, like it was basically, like, it was really the friends we made along the way, that kind of
Yeah,
speech. Was it wasn't the song itself, it was the fact that everybody played together. And then she goes, and the character goes, and it worked, and then credits. I was like,
yeah.
what? I had to go back like several minutes because I thought I had like accidentally skipped through it. But yeah, that it was too abrupt for me.
But I suppose before we go into our ratings of the film, do you think a fourth film will happen?
I don't think it will happen. I don't think it should happen. Please no. Like there is nothing terrible about these films. Like they are perfectly tolerable, but they always feel like a chore to watch. Like I had to sit down and force myself to finish Excellent Adventure. I quite enjoyed Bogus Journey, but this one I watched in one sitting. It was perfectly fine. It was quite fun, but I really had to force myself to turn it on. I just couldn't bring myself to do it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Fair enough.
I could obviously could do it for a fourth film because I've done it 3 times already, but I don't want to if I have a choice.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think if we could live with Bill and Ted, without Bill and Ted for 30 years, we can do it again, please.
Yeah, yeah. That'd be weird. Like if another Bill and Ted film came out in like 30 years, we'd be like, well, nearly 50. that's,
and
that's kind of
Keanu
scary.
Reeves and well, I mean, presumably one of them at least would be dead.
Yeah.
I mean, like Keanu Reeves, like is looking great, but he's in his 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's probably still
I
looking
don't,
at me.
I don't know how many more 30-year gaps we can leave for Bill and Ted movies.
They still look great though, don't they? They have a great head of hair on.
Oh yeah,
both of them.
they look great. Yeah, you can't deny they don't look like themselves at least.
They look amazing.
I mean, they're obviously older versions of themselves, but some people just if you look back 30 years are unrecognizable. I mean, sort of going into like films like Star Wars and stuff like that, the 30-year-on characters just sometimes do not resemble themselves.
I know. But before we wrap up today's video, did you want to give it a rating? Are we going to do massive hit or piece of shit or out of 10?
Yeah, this is a situation where I feel like we've been painted into a corner with the massive hit or piece of shit because I feel like I usually can make a judgment either way, and I will today in saying massive hit, but it's sort of like the best movie ever, worst movie ever with Mr. Sunday Movies and the Weekly Planet, but a bit to a lesser degree because we're not saying it's the best movie ever, we're just saying it's really good. But sometimes it's just good. But I feel like unless it's like bad or worse, I think I have to go with massive hit.
I have to go massive hit as well. Actually, it's sort of a weird rating system, but I really like it. It's part of the charm of the channel. It's why the subscribers keep coming back to these videos.
But I don't think you could argue like this film is bad. I think if something's tolerable, it gets a massive hit on this channel.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, I suppose before we wrap up, shall we let the viewers know what future episodes or podcasts will be coming out in the next week or two?
Yes, so I think we're probably going to push on and finish our Planet of the Apes. Finish that off with part 3. Have you watched any of those films?
I have. I've watched them and taken some brief notes on them. But what about you, mate?
I so far have watched just Rise of the Planet of the Apes. But whenever you're ready to record that third one, I'll expedite the watching of those 2 films. Make that my priority.
Awesome.
So that should be coming up pretty soon. Matthew and I discussed potentially doing the Rocky films. I'd like to do that maybe in a few weeks' time, and maybe get back on the horse of the Disney films and polish those off.
Absolutely.
So sometime in next finish them off by sometime early next year.
Yeah, and I suppose it's coming up to Christmas soon, so we'll probably have to do a Christmas podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe classics.
Yeah.
Maybe It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. That kind of idea.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Well, listen, man, pleasure recording with you today, and hope you guys enjoyed our Bill and Ted Face the Music review. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on the film down below. We'd love to hear them. And shout out to everyone who's stuck with us through this brief hiatus of the podcast. We really appreciate it. So hope you guys are all safe and well. Hope your families are all safe and well. And take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.